Hello, and what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Evolve Beyond Limits podcast, where we talk all things personal growth, transformation, and stress optimization. So today we are going to talk about giving, okay? And one of the things that keeps us from living in our stress sweet spot is overgiving and believing or thinking that we're doing something noble, when in actuality, it's causing feelings like anger, resentment, exhaustion, and it's leaving us feeling depleted. This is an issue because you cannot be the most vibrant version of yourself if you have a stockpile of these emotions built up within you. And one of the reasons that this happens is from overgiving. And I actually told a client the other day, I said, most people don't need to give less. They need to learn to receive more. So we live in a world where we have, in my opinion, overemphasized giving, and without taking the other side of that into account, which is what fuels the giving, receiving. Okay? There is a universal law called the law of giving, but really it's the law of giving and receiving, because for the law to work, it requires both. You cannot give what you do not have. And that's what we're being taught. We're being taught that giving what you don't have is called abundance. It's not. It is simply scarcity in disguise. Giving what you don't have to give is rooted in fear. Okay? And I read a book, great book, definitely recommend, and it was Stop People Pleasing and Get Your Power Back. I'll have to put that up in the show notes. But it talked about how giving without boundaries is not kindness, it is people pleasing. Okay? So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about giving, and we're talking about the 3 places where we can give from. And there's actually only one that we want to give from. And this will hopefully give some of you some awareness around this concept so that you can start to make some changes if you're falling into any of these categories. And I know that when I did this and I became aware of this and I started asking myself the question of where am I giving this from? Where am I giving this from? It will make you change so many things, because ultimately giving from the wrong place it just causes a lot of issues down the road. Okay. So remember, this is not a time to judge. It's simply a time to get curious. So let's break them down. The 3 ways that we can give from the ego, we can give from the mind, and we can give from the heart. We're going to break down what each of those mean. So when we give from the ego, this is more of like a self-sacrificial type of giving. It is giving what you don't have. So that could be giving money that you don't have. That could be giving time that you don't actually have. That could be giving energy when you are depleted and exhausted. That could be trying to give somebody else compassion when you don't have compassion for yourself. This comes in, you can put anything here, but it's giving what you don't have. If your bucket is not overflowing, you don't have it to give. Some people say you can't pour from an empty cup. I like to say you don't pour from your cup at all. You only give what is overflowing. So unless you are overflowing with money, you probably shouldn't be giving money to anybody. Unless you are overflowing with time, then don't give time that you don't have. And so this is when this is all about giving from a place of fear. And again, that's not abundance. That is scarcity in disguise. And so it often leads to feelings of resentment towards the other person on the other end, or it can also lead to feeling like you're being taken advantage of. Okay. This is something that I realized or it can be a combination of the two. You can feel resentment towards that person, or you can also feel taken advantage of. And here's the thing is that people pleasing looks like you're giving without boundaries. So let's just say that somebody is moving. Okay. I think this is an example in the book. Somebody's moving and you had plans to go do all this stuff for yourself the day that they asked. And people pleasing would say, okay, yeah, sure. I don't really have any plans all day. I'll just push what I need to the side. All right. So ultimately, you can convince yourself that you're going to be fine, but because you pushed yourself to the side, you're going to end up resentful. You're going to end up annoyed when you could have said, hey, I can come over for 2 hours in the morning, and then I have lunch and I have a bunch of other things that I needed to get done that day, but I can come help you for a couple hours. And now everybody gets to be happy, right? So that is something that's really important here. And we can oftentimes just see that giving from this place depletes you, and it's really destructive to your health. And so it ultimately does more harm than good. And we do not want to be leading from this place. And here's something that's kind of crazy. So you can see, is there a place in your life? I want you to think about this. Is there a place in your life where you have a hard time receiving? Maybe you have a hard time like with people giving you money. Maybe it's some people giving you compliments. Maybe you have a hard time asking for help, or, asking for somebody to be there for you or support you in something. Why does this happen? Because when we give from a place of the ego, you are harming yourself. And therefore, you struggle to receive that thing from other people because you assume that you are harming them if you take it. All right, let me break this down. So, what does that mean exactly? When we give from our ego, so let's say that we are somebody who always gives time that we don't have. We are essentially turning away from ourselves, and we are disrespecting ourselves, and we are harming ourselves to give to everybody else, right? So then when you need something, what ends up happening is you won't ask anybody for help. You won't ask anybody to give their time because you assume, because you harm yourself every single day doing that for other people, that them saying yes means that you are harming them in some way, shape, or form. So instead of being able to receive it with gratitude, you feel guilty or you feel like a burden. So an exercise that you can do is you can start to look, where do you feel depleted or exhausted in your life? This is often where you are giving more than you are receiving. So it could be work, it could be family, it could be specific relationships, it could be different friendships. And also look at, where do you have a hard time receiving? Because wherever you have a hard time receiving, more than likely you are giving too much in that area, and then ultimately harming yourself and then building resentment towards whatever the thing is or whoever the thing is that you are giving to. So here's a tool. If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? There's always something. So if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? And it's important because really the main thing here, and I have clients do this all the time, is take a pause. Do not, if you're somebody who says yes to everything in the moment, you need to make a rule for a little while that you don't get to say yes to anything in the moment. You have to say things like, you know what, I'm going to have to check my calendar. Thank you so much for asking me and inviting me, but I'm going to have to sit with it and just see if that's going to work out for me. And give yourself a moment to ask yourself this question. If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? And then you also get the opportunity to zoom out and ask yourself, where does this lead? If it leads to resentment or anger with the other person, if it leads to you pushing your stuff aside so that someone else can be happy, it will end up in resentment and you will end up being angry. And it will just kind of sit there and fester in your system. And we do not want that to happen. Okay. So that's giving from the ego. Then we can give from the mind. When we give from the mind, it's the energy of giving to get. You're only doing it because you want something in return. All right. And this one can be really tricky, you guys, because it's usually not like a thing. What you want is something deeper. It's like you wanted appreciation, you wanted recognition, you wanted love, you wanted attention, you wanted praise, you wanted to feel nourished. So those are some deep rooted things, right? And so it's not so simple. But this one's a little bit harder to spot. It's like, am I only doing this because I want something in return? You know, when Andrew used to leave for time, and I know how much it means to him when he comes home and the house is clean and all of these different things, right? Well, one time he came home, he came home and he was, I had spent my time, I had pushed my stuff to the side and I had spent my time cleaning the house, and he walked in and didn't say a word about it. And I was so mad. And why was I mad? Because I wanted recognition. I wanted appreciation. I wanted him to say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for taking all of this time to do this for me and pushing all of your stuff to the side just so that I could be happy. Not a great intention to do it from. If I didn't have the time and I wasn't putting, we're going to talk about giving from the heart in a minute. I shouldn't have done it, right? Because it always ends in anger. Like, you can seem so nice and so generous until you lose your shit. And everybody knows these people, right? Who they're so kind and they're so nice and they're so generous, and then they lose it. I always say that these are the people who end up on like the, like She Killed Her Husband type of shows, because they're just giving and giving and giving. But silently, they are building anger every single time that they don't get what they want back. And so this type of energy can feel very manipulative, and it breeds an unspoken distrust. Like, you always feel like there's a catch to everything. So somebody does something for you and you're like, oh no, what do you want? Right? Like, they only reach out when they need something from you. You feel like you're being used in some way, or like you're going to owe them later. And so this can be easy to pinpoint in other people, but we have to be able to pinpoint it in ourselves as well. Okay. So thinking about that, again, this is very manipulative. There's an unspoken distrust that comes from it. You almost feel like you're always walking on eggshells, and you surely don't want to accept anything that person is giving, because it feels like there's some sort of string attached to it, or later you're going to pay for that thing in some way. So an exercise that you can do here is to kind of look and say, where in my life do I feel anger towards a person or a situation? You can also see if there's anywhere where you feel like somebody else feels like this towards you, and just getting really honest. It's okay. It's okay that we've all done this in some way, but we don't have to keep doing it, right? So we just have to be really cautious about this. And the best tool I can give you here is you have to ask yourself, before you do anything for anybody else, if it feels like this kind of energy, is, what am I trying to get out of this? That whole situation with Andrew, if I would have stopped to be like, what am I trying to get out of it? And ultimately I wanted to feel appreciated, then I have to ask, how can I give that to myself? I must be feeling insecure in some way, shape, or form. And so instead of, doing this thing to try to get what I need out of him, how do I give that to myself? Now, when you give from the mind or you give from the ego, it usually feels constricting. That's one of the best indicators that I can give you, is that it often feels as if you are trying to save yourself or save someone else from something. That might be someone else's reaction, somebody else's disappointment. It might be that you don't think that they're strong enough or capable enough. And it's often tied to trying to be like the hero that no one asked you to be, right? And so the hero or the martyr archetype here is that you can convince yourself that you're doing something good, but you're actually harming yourself and the people around you. And you may be doing it because you feel unworthy. And if you can convince yourself that other people that need you, then your ego will convince you that you're doing something heroic, and that can feel really good. But when we take that hero archetype, we're actually taking away people's personal power and telling them through our actions that we don't believe they're strong enough to handle this, or we don't trust in their capabilities. It's an ego move. It is not a heart move. So if you find yourself in, and sometimes it's also you're trying to avoid their disappointment. And so you're telling them, I don't trust that I can tell you the truth. Maybe that I'm exhausted, I'm depleted, I'm whatever. And that can be, maybe you're trying to hold up a certain identity. You're trying to look a certain way to people. Or it can just be that you're just so afraid of, you think you're going to hurt them. Whatever the reason is, it could just be that you're afraid to be vulnerable and allow people to support you and be like, you know what, that's okay. Like, you're exhausted. Go take care of yourself. Is there anything that I can do for you? But we have a hard time being taken care of. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to receiving with grace. But if you don't tell people the truth, then you're saying, I don't think that you can handle the truth of how I feel. And I don't trust you to support me or love me through this. So if you find yourself in either of these, not giving is the best thing that you can do for yourself and the person on the other side. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. If you find yourself in either of these, not giving is the best thing that you can do for yourself and the other person. All right, because it's going to end in resentment, anger, frustration, something that is not great. So there's one other way that we can give. We can give from the heart. When we give from the heart, it feels expansive. It feels like you are enhancing your experience and someone else's when you do it. When we give from the heart, it feels good for everyone involved. It's not like somebody sacrificed and the other person got all the benefits. It's both people feel so good. It leads to feeling more connected. It leads to more expansive relationships. It tends to create luck in a lot of ways. And it leaves you feeling lighter, happier, and healthier. There's also there's no expectations involved. It's not like, if I give this, what am I going to get in return? Or, whatever that looks like. So if there are relationships that you are unhappy in, it usually means that you aren't spending enough time nourishing yourself, and your relationship is a mirror for that. So this is really just important to understand. Giving from the heart feels really good. Like you leave feeling better than you started. Everybody's excited about it. It didn't come from an expectation. It came from the heart. Like we've all given in this way where it has been like, it's felt so flippin' good. Actually I have an example of this. So last I don't know, a couple Christmases ago, we were out of town. We weren't really with people. And I didn't end up getting anybody a Christmas gift. And I was feeling pretty guilty about that. But there was like an expectation to it that just didn't feel good. And so I didn't get anybody a Christmas gift. I probably should have communicated a little bit better about it, but that's what happened. So then we were coming up to see my parents, and I had found online, I had found one of those bird feeders that it does the recording, like it records the bird feeders and different things, and it shows you the birds and you can take a look at it. I was so flippin' excited to give this gift to my parents, and it wasn't all that expensive. It wasn't for any particular reason. It wasn't for a holiday, nothing. I was just so excited to give them this present. And it's like you could feel it. It was palpable. And I gave them this gift, and they loved it. They put it up right away. And for like the entire summer, I spent time just watching their bird feeder, sending them pictures back and forth. Like it created more connection between us. And it was like this silly little bird feeder, but it's not the bird feeder. It was the energy in which it was given created a more connected, expansive relationship for us. And it was like, I was just as excited to give it as they were to receive it. And so that was super, super fun. So, I think that this is just a really, really powerful thing to do, is take a look at where you are giving from. And before you give anything, pause and see where it's coming from. Is it coming from the ego? Is it coming from the mind? Or is it coming from the heart? And you may have to start saying no to more things. And that's okay. Okay. This is a muscle. When you say no for the first time, you're going to feel fear. Your heart's going to be racing. You're going to feel guilty. That's just a sign that you're getting stronger. But the other side of this is that you need to be open to receive. You need, when somebody tells you or asks if they can help you, you need to learn how to say yes to that. And the more you receive, the more you're going to be able to give from your heart, because the more you're going to be overflowing in all of these different places. If you can't receive, you can't truly give. So you cannot give what you don't have. Well, you can, but again, it's going to end up bad for everybody. So think about that. Allow yourself to kind of sit in the awareness of this, taking a look at it, do some journaling. Man, where are the places that I've given? What did it feel like? Understand the difference and how it feels in your body and your mind and your emotions and what happens. Because the more you can see the symptoms of each one, the less likely you are to give from a place of actual scarcity. And you're going to be able to live a more abundant life. And like I said, you will be able to stay in that stress sweet spot for so much longer if you know how to receive just as much as you give. But we have to do a little bit of digging here. So that is all I have for you today. So as always, just remember that transformation starts with awareness and builds with choosing to take action on what we talked about today. So share this episode with someone who needs it, and let's keep evolving together. I will see you on the next one.